If you are or have ever been ugly, then you understand what I mean when I say that being ugly feels like walking through life being completely invisible to everybody and everything around you. Today, I'm going to be talking about the reality of being unattractive in a world that values attractive people but refuses to discuss it in any type of public manner. I'm going to call this the reverse halo effect. The halo effect typically refers to someone who is generally favored by others because of their looks or perceived attraction. If you are handsome, if you are pretty, if you are beautiful, you're going to be thought of as smarter than everyone else. You're going to be thought of as more athletic than everyone else. You're going to be thought of as generally better than everyone around you. Why is that? We don't generally know. We just know that we think attractive people are much more understanding of the world around us for some reason. And it's been studied and discovered that this is a real thing, but people don't really understand why. I'm going to talk about how this actually affects you in the real world and how it's not just some made up cope that people like to use in life to get around the fact that they're not working hard enough or they're not doing good enough. Number one, earning potential. This is a big one of the main ones that people almost never discuss. On average, attractive people earn more, but very ugly people also earn more than regular unattractive people. So this is quite the conundrum. How is it true that attractive people earn more, but super unattractive people earn more than those who are just moderately unattractive? Well, there is some sort of perceived notion in our society that talks about attraction in a certain way that if you're really ugly, you kind of have a better grasp and grip on your studies. Is this always the case? No. Almost never is it really the case, but I can see where this is coming from. For example, when I was younger, I was not a looker. I was pretty chopped. I'm not going to lie to you. I was pretty ugly. And I honestly didn't focus on anything that had to do with what the peers in my class were focusing on, which was like girls or like going to prom. I had never even considered doing those things. So I thought more of my academics and I thought more of my physical health, like playing basketball and just trying to have more fun. I wasn't interested in social politics or relationships, mainly because I don't think I probably was going to be able to achieve them. I think that's what my mental space was at. So I did devote myself a little bit more to studies than probably most of my other peers. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is the reality. And that's kind of how people think attraction works to some degree. Like if you're ugly, you're more of a nerd or more of a geek and you're gonna spend more time studying than chasing girls, which in my case was the truth. But, and that's also why people generally think super unattractive people are pretty smart. But I want to talk about the main point, which is on average, attractive people earn more. Why is that the case? They are just perceived as smarter. Why? Why are attractive people perceived as smarter? I mean, there's obviously the dumb blonde trope that we see in movies, but attractive people are seen as just more competent and put together. That is the halo effect. That is what we're attributing to these people. Not only do they earn more, but they're more likely to be promoted and more likely to be hired in general by a new company because they just seem more put together than everyone else around them. Why is that the case? We don't know. But I can tell you from experience that in a restaurant context, people who are typically overweight or unattractive aren't working normal service jobs. They usually are put in the kitchen and they're not put in FOH or front of house. If you're unattractive, you're less likely to get the job as a server. It's messed up, but it's reality. It is how it works. That's my own personal experience. Next would be perception. In the legal system, if you are unattractive as a defendant, you're more likely going to be perceived as guilty by the jury. Why that is, I don't really know. You just seem like you did it more, I guess. It's messed up to say, but it's real, and it's how people are perceived. It's unfortunate, but that's how it happens. Next is workplace performance. People think you do a shittier job at work if you're ugly. It's not the case. Is it rarely the case? You're probably doing the same as your peers, but you just seem like you're doing a worse job to everyone around you. It sucks, but it's honestly just the reality of being unattractive in a world that refuses to acknowledge that, at least in a culture in America that refuses to acknowledge that attractive people get more benefits than unattractive people. Lastly is the competence bias. People think you're dumb if you're ugly. It's messed up, but if you're really ugly, they think you're smart. Like if you go to an accountant's office and they just kind of look sloppy, you're not going to trust them. But if they look cooked, like completely chopped, and like they're like super old and they have like a bald spot and they have like the long gray hair and they just look generally horrible, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to trust that guy with every penny I have. I feel like he knows a lot about money. It's messed up to say, but it's real. People who are super attractive are seen as less competent. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And our society doesn't really like to admit that. But it's a real thing, and it does happen. Next is going to be psychological. Being ugly comes with a lot of psychological undertones. Number one would be low self-esteem. That's evident. That's self-obvious. If you are ugly, you're likely not going to go try to pursue the most attractive person you know. It is what it is. That's how it works. So you're going to think of yourself as less. You're going to think of yourself as less athletic. You're going to think of yourself as less competent. You're going to think of yourself as at a disadvantage. Because in reality, you probably are at a slight disadvantage. But then society refuses to acknowledge that disadvantage. So it makes you kind of gaslit into thinking that maybe it's just your own fault. So it's just a spiral that keeps you down and pushing you further and further and further and further. Next would be more aggressive. It's been studied that males who are more aggressive typically are deemed more unattractive. Why is that? I don't know. But if you're trying to fight everyone all the time, that's probably a sign that you're chopped. It's not right, but it's what's been studied, it's what's been seen, it's what's been understood in science. So if you're trying to fight everyone all the time, chances are you don't feel good about yourself. This probably stems from childhood bullying, they assume, or neglect as a child, because that is something that does happen, unfortunately, to less attractive children. Children are oftentimes neglected if they aren't perceived as good looking as their siblings or their more attractive counterparts. Lastly would be lower self-awareness. You would think that attractive people have low self-awareness because that's how they're portrayed in movies, but it's honestly contradictory. It's not how it works. Attractive people typically like to downplay their own looks. And that's a trait of self-awareness. That is a trait showing not humility and not like approval-seeking behavior, just more like that's just showing that they understand saying that you look really good is probably not the best look. Also, they can kind of more realistically look at their own facial features and tell, am I attractive in this outfit? Does this fit me? Is this a good idea to wear? They're just better at judging that kind of thing. So that's been studied and that's been shown how the psychological effects of unattractiveness impact people, especially when you really start to go into the actual scientific data of it. So Now that we've kind of discussed what it's like to be unattractive and what it's like to feel unattractive, now I'm going to go into how is attractiveness judged? What makes someone good looking? What makes someone want to be around or be with another person? This is obviously talked about a lot, and I'm not some looks maxer. I'm not going to go into some crazy weird hypothesis and talk about like bone smashing or some ridiculous idea like that. That's not what we're getting into today. But there's a lot of physical factors. A lot of people in the black pill space like to think that it's all physical. No, it's not all physical. All physical doesn't exist. There's a lot of other factors when it comes to judging attractiveness. And one of those factors is going to be height and face card. If you're short as a woman, you're deemed as more attractive to the opposite sex. If you are tall as a man, you're deemed as more attractive to women. It is what it is. It's how it works, and it's how you're perceived. It's maybe some biological stuff, maybe some cultural things. It really just depends on where you are and what your culture entails. Typically, men under 5'5", like if you're 5'4" and under, they have a lot less options when it comes to dating. And men 6'2" and up have a lot more options because they're just deemed more attractive on a general scale by more women. Next is face card. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not a looks maxer. I don't care how much you do crazy things to your face. It's a genetic thing and you have to deal with it. You can get plastic surgery, and how they like to claim do a Turkey trip, go to Turkey and get like plastic surgery and do a whole bunch of crazy things to your face. I don't really recommend that. I wouldn't say that that's the only way and that's how the main way attractiveness is judged. It's part of it. But there's a lot of other factors you can do without cosmetically rearranging your physiology. Next would be skin clarity. There's Accutane to get rid of all the acne. You can have a healthier diet. You can work out more. All that's attributed to a more of a health response. Like if someone is healthy, they're deemed more attractive, which is completely understandable. I don't want to be with someone who has like cystic acne, because it's just not a good look. It's something we learn from like middle school, really young people with acne. Oftentimes they're just not as attractive, which, I mean, it's not like out of the realm of, like, it's not like people don't understand that. It's a health signal. If you show that you're unhealthy in nature, you don't want to pick like a sick partner, a sick mate. And that's just a natural response to that. But sometimes you can fix this, and sometimes you can't. But it is one way that attractiveness is judged. Next would be body language. If you're sitting there with your arms crossed, or you're at a party just like sipping a drink in the corner trying to look mysterious, you look lame, no one likes you, and you're not outgoing enough. Now, if you're chopped and you want to just be in the corner and pout your whole life about that, then go ahead and do it. But that's not going to make you any better looking. Looking mysterious isn't cool. You need to be outgoing. You need to do different things, but that's just generally unattractive because it just shows that you don't believe, not in yourself, but you don't believe in your own attraction, your own attractiveness. Attractive people don't hide in the corner. Attractive people try to go out and they try to do things around other individuals that seems fun, because that's what they're there for. They're there to have fun. Lastly would be like teeth. That's a cultural thing for the most part. Like in the UK, teeth isn't as much of a signal of attraction as it is in the US. It's almost mandatory for every kid to get braces when they're young in the US. That's obviously far from the truth in the UK. We make fun of them for that, but it's just a cultural difference. Teeth aren't as important to people in the UK as it is in America. Then there's a lot of psychological factors when it comes to attraction. And that's confidence. Easy. It's easily understood. Why is confidence attractive? Because it is. Because people like to be around other people who make them feel safe, who don't make them feel judged. Confidence is just a trait that people love because they like to be around it. I don't want to be around someone who's not confident. I don't want to start being around someone who doesn't understand what it's like to have fun, who won't back me up if I get into a fight. Confidence is cool. I like that. I want to be around that. So you have to kind of embody that. Next would be status. Status and wealth I put in two different categories because wealth doesn't necessarily mean status. There's a lot of unknown billionaires, but there's a lot of also famous people who aren't necessarily the richest. Status, it does matter. It doesn't matter as a lot of people like to attribute it to, but it is a factor that is quite understood. And it's not just followers on Instagram. It could be like political power. It could be like just status in like some little group you're in, or like even like the little club that you're a part of like basketball nerds or something. That's all status. And that's all judged like by the people around you. The higher status you are, typically the more people are going to like you, which is normal, which is fine, and that's well understood. Next is wealth. If you have a lot of money, you're going to attract more people than if you're homeless. That's obvious. It's just money is a sign of like resource, like awareness, and also kind of, it's messed up to say, but like kind of like an indicator of stability and resourcefulness. Also, like it could be kind of attributed to intellect sometimes, which I think is wrong. But yeah, sometimes smarter people are just seemed as, wealthier people are just seemed as smarter. It's not fully understood why, but I can get it, you know? Next would be intelligence. People who are stupid aren't necessarily the most attractive, but people who are too smart for their own good and they're too self-aware are also not attractive. Isaac Newton, one of the smartest people of all time, it was not attractive to any of the ladies that he was around. He died notoriously a virgin. That is strange for someone who literally changed the way we see the world. But it was real, and he was too smart probably for his own good. And sometimes it's just like that. It is just like that. The dumber people get that advantage, but being smarter on average is seen as more attractive. Next would be expressiveness. Are you expressing yourself in a genuine way, in a genuine manner? If you are, then you're likely probably more attractive. People who are unattractive, it's seen like they fake emotions. And if you've ever been around someone like that, it's kind of off-putting. Like if someone's faking a reaction, you're just like, what is wrong with this person? And you don't want to be around them, which I completely understand and I empathize with. I don't want to be around someone who's faking like their emotions either. I think that's strange. I think that's bizarre. I don't think anyone wants to be around that. So that's a sign of like low attraction, because it seems like you're trying to present something or put on a face or something around other people. And that totally makes sense to me. Lastly would be like behavior. Like if you treat the people around you like trash, like if you're at a restaurant and you're treating the service staff like garbage, no one's gonna like you, bro. No one likes that. No one thinks that's cool. I definitely don't. I think that's a low status thing, a low value thing. Like if you're doing that, you're not used to having any type of power. You're not used to having any type of responsibility. You are just like a plague, and you are the worst person to ever exist. I don't like people like that. I don't know anyone who likes to watch other people abuse their power or their status over others. I think that's generally looked down upon, and for good reason. I think that that's perfectly reasonable to do that. How to become more desirable. This is what everyone wants to know. How do you become beautiful? How do you become what everyone wants? And like I said, I'm not some weird looks maxer. You're not going to Turkey. There's two ways to do it. There's two separate things. Like I said, I used to be chopped when I was younger. I grew a little bit of curly hair. I got a little bit taller, and I stayed pretty lean because I was active in basketball. Without one of those things, I probably wouldn't have been as attractive as I am now. And those are all genetic, but there's a physical part of it. Like I said, if I didn't work out and I wasn't as lean as I am, then I probably wouldn't have been perceived as attractive like I am now. So the main way you can physically look more attractive is through losing body fat. The sharper your jawline is, the more you can see the definition on your body. These are all contributing factors, and it's a pretty controllable way to become more attractive. Like, there's a lot of things you can't control about your face and your genetics, but you can definitely control the amount of body fat you have because of what you eat. Like, it's all about diet. It's not really about anything else, and you control how much you eat. So, like, that's 100% something that is fully under your capabilities as a person to control. So you can lose body fat. You can also gain muscle. There's a lot of calisthenics athletes out there, so you don't need money for a gym. You don't necessarily need a whole bunch of money for nutrition. I mean, I'd venture to guess that you probably do need some money to like retain the muscle with like protein powder and stuff like that, but calisthenics athletes exist for a reason. I mean, they're there and you just got to get access to a park, basically. Like, if you have access to a park, you're probably going to be able to get pretty shredded, pretty ripped, pretty muscular. You don't need to be a super massive bodybuilder. That is not appealing. But having muscle as a man is appealing. I don't care what other people want to tell you. It's a fundamental fact about being a man in a Western society. Having muscles is better than not having muscles. I know that from firsthand experience, being a skinny guy pretty much my entire life. Next would be clearing up your skin. Like I said, Accutane exists, acne creams exist, good diets, you can control that. There's a lot that you can control that a lot of people don't like to attribute control to, but you can clear that up. Next would be wardrobe and hairstyle. Again, another thing completely under your control. You can actually control what you wear, how your hair looks, and test things out. These are things that are under your control. All these things you can do. I'm not talking about changing your genetic structure or going to get like plastic surgery. That's not something you want to do. But there are things you can control that I have been able to improve in my life personally that have helped me tons. Next would be a mental thing you can control. When I say increase income and you're like, oh, that's not mental, that's physical. No, it's all mental. Income is pretty much almost always mental. A lot of people who say like, oh, you need to be born into money to have money, that's a cope. You live in America, bro. Like, you live in the land of the free. You live in the land that everyone wants to come to make bread. There's a reason for that. One, our propaganda is amazing. Two, like, there is a lot of abusive business people here, and they have made it really easy for other abusive business people to make more money and have more business. Like, you're living in the culture of capitalism, like the birthplace of super capitalism. You can make bread here. Don't pretend like you can't. So, increasing your income will make you feel better about yourself. It will make you feel like you have more worth, you have more resources, and honestly, it's better. Like, if you're homeless and you're broke, you don't feel great. No one feels great when they're at their brokest. Like, you're not your most confident in life when you're in college. That's like your least confident period. You feel confident when you're like in your 30s or 40s and you're like at your highest income earning. Well, your 50s is, but like you have like the most responsibility and you're earning good money and like you have a lot of responsibility. It's probably when you feel the most confident, most stressed, but also most confident. Next would be become more curious. You can't make yourself more intelligent intuitively, but you can make yourself a more learned individual. You can learn more things, and the only way to do that is to be curious about, guess what? More things. There's only one way to do that. You have to try to learn more. That's it. Like, there's nothing else really that's going to do it for you, like to make you smarter, except just trying to learn shit, like for real. Like, there's nothing that's going to make you smarter unless you want to learn. So next would be kind and keep boundaries. You don't need to be a pushover. No one is saying that. That's not what you want to be. But you need to be kind. Like I said, treating people like trash is not cool. If you've been around people like that, you see how uncool that is. You don't want to treat people poorly. You want to treat people with respect. You want to be kind to people. That's what you want. But you also have to keep boundaries. You can't be a pushover. you can't be someone that other people are allowed to step on. To be a person who's attractive, you need to have other people around you treat you with respect. Now, keeping boundaries, well, making boundaries with an individual who you've never had boundaries with is a harder task than other people like to admit. Like you're just like, oh, cut them off. It's not that simple. You've been one way your whole life, and now you're going to completely change in one day. It's going to be weird, and there's going to be some growing pains, like it's not going to be something you're used to, but it's something that's natural. It's something that occurs in a lot of people. So, like, just keep that in mind and be kind to people and just keep strong boundaries. The best people around you, have you noticed, they're pretty nice to other people. They're not pushovers, but they're very nice. Lastly would be fake some confidence. If you're ugly, you don't have confidence. Don't pretend like you do. Don't pretend like, oh yeah, I'm going to be that guy from now on. Like, you're not that guy. You're not going to be that guy. You're not Mr. Confidence, but you could fake it. Plenty of people fake confidence. How do you think salesmen get their start if they're chopped, Like salesmen get their start if they're ugly, even if they're just not the best looking, because they fake confidence. They fake like, oh yeah, I'm the best salesman in the room, even though they probably suck at first and they're chopped and no one wants to be around them because they look raggedy. Fake it. You'll get it eventually. Like, it's not going to be like from one day to the next, like, oh, I'm Mr. Confident. I am Mr. Like, I'm that guy that day. Like, you just gotta fake it for a while. It's okay, no one's gonna judge you for that. Like, people fake stuff all the time in life, and it's completely understandable why. It's nothing crazy. Just do it for a while. You'll eventually start to do it so much that it'll kind of like be second nature, and it'll be like a normal thing, and you'll start to get used to that feeling of like doing whatever you want and kind of getting the things you want, and then eventually the confidence will become real at some point. But that's pretty much it. That's going to do it. If you like what you saw, subscribe. Thanks for watching.